Obviously, just like any other war, wounds of all kinds are another survival challenge. Keeping the wounded alive is a precious skill.
We had a lot of wounded, considering we only had that many people there.
The paramedics, the medics that we had were good. They would do whatever they could.
You didn't think of the wound itself. You thought of helping the injured. If a guy had a broken arm, you wanted to help ease his pain.
They were given morphine by the regimental stretcher bearers themselves.
Most of the time, the stretcher bearers of the 22nd took the injured to the roadside, and we went to get them to bring them back.
If we received word by radio that casualties were coming in by helicopter, we put out a Red Cross symbol on the ground, and helicopters, little Bell helicopters, which carried only one or two stretchers outside of the cabin on the bottom.
We handled what you'd call first aid today. Triage, if you will.
The triage system is essentially taking a quick look at wounded, and you decide that at one level this man is not going to survive. At the other level, this man's got a few scratches and he just needs some simple treatment. And in between are the more severely wounded who will need much more attention.
We did initial surgery on patients. For example, if a guy had a shrapnel wound as a result of an exploding shell, then we went in and got it out.
Well, we didn't have all the equipment you'd have in a modern hospital here. We had the majority of it, and we improvised. For instance, you might be using an intravenous line, and you'd hang that from one of the ropes inside the tent. And the sterilization was accomplished. We had steam sterilizers, but the conditions were extremely different. But mind you, we were dealing with young men in relatively good condition, and they were well immunized.
They had a lot of guts, those guys, you know. And they didn't cry. They just suffered and suffered and held in there.
We didn't close the wounds initially, and that was had been started actually in World War II, although it wasn't quite as common in World War II. The idea was that you removed anything that was reasonably accessible without prodding too much for the last bit of metal, because that's not necessary and probably undesirable. It caused more trauma than it would help. And we would clean up the wounds. And if the edges were ragged, we cut those into a straight line rather than a ragged line. And then we packed the wound.
We didn't finish the operation. They left with missing flesh, and we sent them to Japan, where they finished the surgery. They had some stuff that regenerated skin that had been cut off.
I was in Fury, Japan. And it was a tremendous experience, but a very. I often think of these young people. You know, there were so many very young ones, 17, 18-year-olds that had been severely wounded. And they were brought right from the front lines to us. Burns were very bad, and amputations, and the shrapnel wounds. You know, because there were, holes in the abdominal area or some area of their body. And it was all terrible, the amputations of young people. It was very sad and very hard. Yeah, it was. And I'll never get over how brave and courageous and nice these young people were, even though they were going through all that.